Hi, friends. I'm Miss Julie from the Byron Township branch of Kent District Library. And I'm here with, this way.
I'm Christine. I'm from the Granville branch. And Miss Julie, can you tell us what we're going to be doing today?
We have books that we're going to share with you today that we have really enjoyed. New ones that are realistic fiction. Realistic fiction are stories that could really happen. Things that you might know someone it's happened to, or just people in the world somewhere that it could really happen to. So you're going to start us off?
I would love to. All right. The first book that I have to tell you about today is called Libby Loves Science. This is a picture book by Kimberly Durteen and Shelley R. Johannes, and it's illustrated by Joelle Murray. This book is about Libby, who loves science. And when Libby's teacher, Mr. Darwin, asks the class for volunteers to run the science booth at the school's upcoming fall festival, Libby and her friends Rosa and Finn immediately volunteer. They all love science and they have tons of cool ideas about what to do at their booth. And it's a good thing that they do too, because the booth that attracts the most visitors wins an ice cream party for their class. So the stakes are high because the three friends, they love science, but they also really love ice cream. But on the day of the fall festival, Libby, Rosa, and Finn realize that winning is going to be much harder than they anticipated. Because between the cotton candy booth, the face painting booth, the dunk tank, the science booth, it has some pretty tough competition. The three friends are going to have to get pretty creative if they want to earn that ice cream party. My favorite part about this book is that it includes the instructions to do a lot of the different experiments that Libby and her friends do throughout the book. So if you think that they sound interesting, you can actually follow along and do all of the different experiments that they do. There are instructions for activities like giant bubbles, bottle rockets, and even homemade ice cream. Libby Loves Science is full of awesome themes like friendship, teamwork, and learning how to be flexible when you're in a challenging situation.
That sounds amazing. It's like two books in one. Well, I'll tell you, my first book today is called Unbeatable Betty by Allison Kreutzer Kimmel. Now, Unbeatable Betty, I kind of cheated on this one a little because it's not actually fiction. It's a true story of a woman named Betty Robinson. She was born in 1911. Yes, not 2011, 1911, over 100 years ago. And when Betty was 16, she was running for the train that she took to school one day. And no one thought she would make it because the train was going fast. And Betty made the train. Well, it turned out her biology teacher was on the train. And he also happened to be the men's track coach. And so he asked Betty to stop by and see him so he could time her, and was amazed at her times, got her to train with the men's track team. And after just 8 races, before she was even 17 years old, Betty found herself getting on a boat over here to go to Amsterdam for the first Olympics that women were allowed to compete in. Well, Betty came home with not just one medal, but a couple, including the gold. So she continued her education. She continued to train for the next Olympics in 1932. But in the meantime, she was also learning to be a pilot. So on one of these training flights in a small plane, the plane actually crashed right out of the sky. No one thought Betty was going to survive it. And the doctors, when she finally came out of her coma after many weeks, they said, "You're never going to walk without a limp again, and you will never, ever run." Well, do you really think that let Betty stop her? Go ahead and read Unbeatable Betty and find out how this amazing story ends. Miss Christine?
We have one more picture book to share with you before we move on to kind of the next level. And the picture book is called Crit Dreams of Dragon Fruit. It's by Natalie Beecher and Emily France, and it's illustrated by Samantha Wu. Crit was born in Thailand, and he loves his home. He loves everything about it. The delicious fruit, the awesome statues, and of course, the magical festivals. Doesn't that look magical? It looks incredible. And look at when the illustrator shows his home, how warm everything looks. That looks so inviting and welcoming and happy. But Crit, his mom, and their dog Moo just moved to the United States. They moved to Chicago, and now Crit doesn't like anything about his home. It's completely different. It's missing all the things that he used to love about Thailand. Look at how cold it looks. It looks cold. It looks very bleak. Everything's just gray. There's not a lot of color. Until one day, Crit sees something that reminds him of his home in Thailand. And that something leads him to a new friend who shows him all of the things that she loves about living in his new home of Chicago. And Crit starts to think, maybe it's possible to have more than one home, and maybe it's even possible to love more than one place. I really enjoyed this story, and I really liked how the illustrator, Samantha Wu, used color to show the reader how Crit is feeling inside at various points in the story. Crit Dreams of Dragon Fruit is a heartwarming story about how hard it can be to move homes and what it truly means to be home.
Oh, I love books like that, especially when they show that the illustrations are so much of telling the story. Well, I'm moving on to ER. Now, ERs are early readers. So they're beginning chapter books for you kids who are just learning to read on your own. This one is called The Best Seat in First Grade by Catherine Keenah. Now, first grade, I know one of the things kids love to do in first grade is share. Share things that you love, share things that you've done. Well, when it was Sam's turn to share, he was so excited and he got up and he told the class, our elephant had a baby and her name is Daisy. And his class thought, come on, nobody has a pet elephant, do they? Sam did seem to know an awful lot about elephants, though. So read The Best Seat in First Grade to find out why Sam knows so much about elephants.
I am definitely curious now, and I'm going to want to read that one. So next up, I have another easy reader for you. And this is a great one for someone who is still learning to read, but maybe you're a little bored by the other easy readers. You want more of a challenge, but that you think that the early chapter books like Magic Treehouse, maybe those are just still a little too scary, too many words. This one is a nice middle ground because it has a lot of pictures still on the page, but it's broken up into a couple different chapters, so it feels like you're reading kind of a longer chapter book. It is part of the Noodlehead series, and it is called Lucky Day. It's written by Ted Arnold, Martha Hamilton, Mitch Weiss, and illustrated by Ted Arnold. This book is great. It is super silly. It's a little bit ridiculous. Mac and Mac are twins. They share a name. They're also noodles. And this book is the story of what happened to them on a very, very lucky day. See, their friend Meatball, he's a little devious. He's a little sneaky. He likes to play pranks. And he tricks the brothers into bringing home a bag full of bees and also into buying a watermelon that he has convinced them is actually a kitten egg. But it is Mac and Mac's lucky day after all, so everything keeps working out for the best. The stories in this book are based on stories from all over the world, from countries like Algeria, Turkey, Vietnam, and Germany. That is Lucky Day by Ted Arnold, Martha Hamilton, and Mitch Weiss.
Well, I'm laughing out loud just listening to your description of it. And I know that one of the favorites at my house was always Fly Guy. So I know with Ted Arnold at the helm, it's got to be a funny one. Well, my next story is actually a JE. So it's the next step up. It means there's more words, little longer chapters, and not quite as many pictures in the story. Well, this is part of a series. It's called The Adventures of Allie and Amy. And this one's called Rockin' Rockets. It's by Stephanie Kalmanson and Joanna Cole. Now, Amy and Allie are best friends, and they never fight. They just get along beautifully, never have an issue until Grace moves in next door. And then there starts to be some issues with the girls, including the fact that Grace has one extra ticket to the rock show that they all want to go see, the band that everybody's dying to go see. Well, we'll find out what happens at the end of the story, but it's such a real story, real things that we're all going through, characters that we all know and like, even the boy that they know, Marvin, I believe his name is, who sometimes they love hanging out with Marvin and sometimes he annoys them because let's face it, we all have those days that we get along with everybody and we all have those days that we can be kind of annoying too. So it's just really true to life. And I really enjoyed meeting Allie and Amy.
Next up is another junior easy book, a JE book, but it has a little bit more of a graphic novel feel, and it is actually written mostly through letters that the characters write back and forth. It is about Simon the cat and Baxter the dog, and the two of them share a human, a boy named Andy. See, Simon lives with Andy's mom, and Baxter has just gone to live with Andy's dad. And Andy kind of goes back and forth between the two different houses. Now, Simon the cat does not like having to share Andy with Baxter, and he does not like Baxter at all. Since Baxter came along, everything's been going wrong. Andy's been sneezing. Andy's keeps forgetting to do his homework. And then Andy breaks his arm, which is pretty serious. And Simon thinks that all of this is Baxter's fault. And he decides it is up to him to get rid of Baxter. And he has to do that for Andy's own good, of course. It has nothing to do with his own jealousy. It is all for Andy. But when Simon's plan backfires, he has to find a way to make it right. This is a pretty humorous book. It's pretty silly, it's pretty funny, and it's told mainly through the letters that the two of them write to each other. It's a story about dealing with jealousy and figuring out how to make your mistakes right again and how to make it up to the people that you hurt. And also about how to see the good in other people, or I suppose in this situation, in the other animals around you. That's Dear Beast by Dory Hillstead Butler, illustrated by Kevin Atterbury.
I always appreciate a story that has a good chuckle. Well, the next book I have is actually J fiction. So these are longer chapter books without the pictures. But you older kids are definitely ready for these stories. This is a story called The Boys in the Back Row by Mike Young. Now, this story centers on Matt and Eric, who are best friends. They have three favorite things they love to do together. One is band. In fact, the back row is where the drum line sits in the band. So they sit back there together. They love comic books and they love being taste testers for Eric's mom, who is a chef specializing in desserts. Not a bad gig, huh? Well, Eric's mom gets offered a job all the way across the country. So at the end of the year, he's going to have to move. And the two boys decide that together they want one last amazing adventure. So, as it turns out, the band is going on for a competition at an amusement park for a weekend, and it just happens that there's a comic book festival half a mile away from the amusement park, and their very favorite comic book artist is going to be there. It's the only place he's going to be, so they are dying to get there and get his autograph and meet him in person. So the question remains: do you think they'll actually be able to get away from the amusement park together without the teachers catching them or without bully Sean turning them in? It's a great story of friendship and adventures. And I love the fact that you don't see a lot of books that center on the band kids or the comic book kids. So I love the fact that these kids, who are a lot of us, are included in a story too.
All right, I have a chapter book here called Serena Says. It's by Tanita S. Davis. And it is about Serena St. John. And Serena's best friend, JC, is in the hospital. And she's been in the hospital for a little bit because she just got a kidney transplant and now she's recovering from it. And Serena has been waiting and waiting and waiting to finally go and get to see and visit JC. But then Serena comes down with a cold, and her mom tells her that she's not allowed to go see JC right now because it's really, really important that JC isn't exposed to any extra germs because her immune system is compromised right now. So for her safety, Serena can't see her until she gets better. Now, this is a bummer, but the situation gets even worse because even though Serena can't visit her, someone still has to go bring JC her homework, and that someone is the new girl named Leilani. And now when JC finally is back at school, it seems like JC is suddenly best friends with Leilani, and she starts leaving Serena out of their plans, which is pretty hurtful for Serena. And Serena doesn't really know what to do. JC is really outgoing, she's really friendly, and it always seems like she's the center of attention. And Serena is totally fine with that. In fact, she is proud to be known as JC's best friend. But now that it seems like she's been replaced with Leilani, Serena doesn't know what to do with herself or with her time anymore, or really know exactly who she is apart from her friends. So Serena starts a video blog called a vlog, and she calls her vlog Serena Says. And on her vlog, she does crafts, she talks about what's going on in her life, and she gives advice to the people watching. She also starts standing up for herself and trying new things, as well as taking on some leadership opportunities at school, like Student Senate, which comes with a lot of responsibilities. Losing JC as her friend seemed like the end of the world, but maybe it was exactly what Serena needed to find some new confidence and to find her own voice. Serena Says by Tanita Davis is an awesome book about a regular kid going through regular life stuff, changing friendships, school projects, and growing up. Over to Miss Julie for one more J fiction option.
All right. Now, this one is called The Canyon's Edge by Dusty Bowling. This is an edge of your seat tale of loss and of healing. And it starts out where we realize that Nora and her father are at the 1-year anniversary of Nora's mother's death. So this is a really hard time for them. So the two of them decide to mark the day by going out and doing something they love. They hike out into the desert to a slot canyon. You see, this slot canyon is a really deep and narrow canyon that's carved out by moving water. So they hike out to the canyon and they rappel down. They use their ropes and their climbing gear to climb down into the bottom of the canyon. And just as they get down there, an unexpected flash flood hits them and carries her father and her backpack with all her supplies away. So now Nora is left to use her wits and her knowledge that she's learned from all these hiking and climbing trips with her parents to find her dad and to survive out in the desert on her own. Now, this is an action-packed story. It's a page turner that keeps your heart moving the whole time. But one of the most interesting things about this story is that it starts out in a traditional narrative style, but then when the water hits, when that flash flood comes, the author changes style and now starts writing in a poetic verse style. The rest of the story moves on until the very last chapter through this story told in verse. And if you've never read a story told in verse before, this would be a great place to start, because I'm telling you, it's a page turner. It's action packed, it's nail biting, and it's a really exhilarating story. And it would be a great place to start to try something new. Thanks for listening today, folks. Miss Christine, anything left to add?
Just that that's a really good book, and your book talk makes me want to read it again. But I hope that everyone listening was able to hear about something that sounds good to them.
I agree, and I hope that they come and visit us and check out some of these books. Thanks
Thank you
for
all.
joining us. Bye, everybody.